Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Copilot Learning Hub. All right, so one thing we've not actually done on the show is talk about a very important area of life, which is education. And I know there's been a lot of talk about like AI in education. How is AI disrupting education? How is it influencing education? Good way, bad way? And instead of us theoretically pontificating about it, we decided, why don't we call an actual expert? Wow. So we have, that's you.
Yes.
Just so you know. Okay. We plucked Jethro kind of off the street, not really, and asked him to come in and tell us about all things Copilot and EDU. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for joining us in person. We love in-person guests. They're the best. Okay, so tell us a little bit about you. What do you do? And what are you excited about in the land of EDU and AI?
Oh, a lot of things. So my name is Jethro. I'm a product manager on the education engineering team. And I really get to spend a lot of time just with our customers talking about AI, talking about Copilot, but talking also about how AI can be used in education in all these different forms, right? Lately, we've been talking a lot about generative AI and Copilot specifically, but within education, we use all forms of AI. We're going to show you that in a bit as well. So there's all these different components how AI can help in the education process, but also AI as a skill set. We know from our Word Trend Index that AI skills are super essentials. So not only do we want to use AI to help our educators teach and our learners learn, but we also want them to have the AI skill set they're going to need in their second career when they join the workforce.
Okay, so their team is building AI tools to help education and learners, yay, but also using AI to build AI capabilities in the next gen of people, right? Because we all know that today's group of students are using AI in the classroom, but how can they use it in a way that is responsible and useful so then they can as they go forward, join the workforce, know how to use it in a worky, appropriate
100%, right? Because when we have the conversations, all often about plagiarism and they're not writing their own essays anymore. In a lot of ways, what we're trying to do is the same way as what we're doing with Copilot then from a productivity perspective, how can Copilot help you? Same thing is here then for our educators and for our learners as well. How can AI then help you write a better essay, be more efficient to learn a specific skill? And that is going to be essential, one, when they are a student or when they are a learner, but also then when they graduate and they join an enterprise or a small business to understand how to use AI in an efficient way, in a responsible way, making sure that they do the due diligence, that they're critical thinking about what AI pushes out. And that's really what we're trying to do. We're not trying to replace anything. We just want AI to be another tool in their tool belt that they can use.
That's exactly it, where it's a tool for specific scenarios where it makes sense. And I think a big question is, what are the scenarios where it makes sense?
Yes.
And I think a lot of people, especially students, aren't quite sure, because why would they, right? We barely know what are the right scenarios.
So, and that's the thing, it's also a little bit for us, always, every day is a new scenario, right? We always hear an educator or a learner, hey, I did this something amazing. I will give you one example. I had the fortune to work with a professor out of Florida who's like, hey, Jethro, I have all these amazing questions that I've used at exams, but I'm just out of real estate almost to come up with new ones. Can AI help you with that, right? So it's similar problem generation. So we worked with him, created a prompt. We actually turned that into an application, and at that point, students could just go to his website, to his application, and say, okay, cool, I'm ready to test myself, generate this, came up with all these different problems. So instead of now the professor having to generate all these things and always kind of have the same type of problem, now we could actually take it to the next level and increase the complexity based on what the student was actually able to do.
I love that. That's so cool. So it's like teacher's assistant, especially for something so tactical, where they're like, look, I've used up all my brain cells. Please give me some more thought partner-isms. Yeah, I love that.
Another one that I will use is, for example, a lot of our educators will be able to attest to that. when we teach, there's certain standards that state and countries bring to the requirements. Oh, this needs to be covered, this needs to be covered. And when you're a starting educator, that's not always the easiest thing to do. So one of the things, for example, that we want to do in our products is also integrate that. Is that you can say, look, here's my lesson plan. Here's a specific standard I would love to incorporate into that. Can you give me some ideas? And then Copilot can actually help them with that generation. They still select, they still choose which one they want. They still bring it into reality. But we can give them ideas based on, oh, you want to do vectors in math? Okay, here's some ideas. Now you take it.
I like that.
So it's on different levels, and I think having these different audiences in education is so rewarding because you can come up with scenarios for educators. You can come up with scenarios for learners. And suddenly we're talking about all these new things that educators and learners can take advantage of to really drive education to a next level, to connect with the student, understanding what the student wants to learn, that connect with some of the interests and hobbies that they have.
That's right.
So
and use it to create just a better learning experience. Because students are going to care way more, like if they're into motorcycles, I guess students shouldn't be into motorcycles, but you know what I mean.
Totally.
They're into, I don't know, biking. Giving problems and things in the forms of biking would be much more relevant.
100%.
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's like it's something we've been doing for a very long time. For example, with Minecraft and other applications like that, is we've really started to take educational concepts and then take other technology, whether it's Minecraft, whether it's AI or something else, and bring those two together to deliver a higher quality of that.
I love it. All right, so you've got this laptop open, and I see some demos. What have you got to show us today? So
I really wanted to show one concept first, which is something we've been doing for Copilot for M365. So people on who are watching this video probably will know our agents, and one of as an education team, we wanted to kind of show to our customers what was possible with the agents. So we're actually delivering 2 agents for Copilot for M365, one for teachers or our educators, which we call the teaching, and one for learning, which we call, of course, our learning. So really what I want to do real quick is show you just the possibilities, and I'm going to start with the teaching one. So really what you have here are 5 conversation starters that are really focused on our educators, going from generate a lesson plan, build an interactive lecture, design an assignment, the learning goals that we just talked about with standards. So this is really an opportunity for now an educator to say, look, here's my lesson plan, here's what I want to do, can you help? And what is really cool with these agents is that you can give it kind of a personality. That's this whole system prompt that is associated with it. So for example, for the teaching, what we've done here is really give it an instructional designer. So it's like this super experienced teacher who can then guide our educators. Hey, have you thought about this? Here's another idea that you can use, right? So this is really tailored towards our educators. And we have this similar thing then for learners. Then to learn a new topic, test for a topic, create writing feedback. And where with the teaching one, it was an instructional designer, more that was the kind of the persona. This is more like an experienced mentor.
I love that.
So where it's actually going to give you examples rather than giving you immediately the questions like, hey, what if we would this? For example, let's say we want to do some geometry, right? The Pythagorean theorem that we want to use here, which is always a very difficult word to pronounce. But instead of saying, hey, can you explain that to me? And I'm going to use your example to make it connected to students. Let's say that they're into football. Right? Whether it's soccer or football or the other way around, right?
Whatever the sport is called in your country.
So at that point, you can actually say, look, if the length of the pitch is that, and then the width is this, how would you now calculate what the diagonal actually is?
Okay, that's cute. Okay, that's cute because first of all, Pythagorean theorem, I haven't heard these words in 20 years. And second of all, I forgot what it was. But now I understand. I remember what this is. Because, oh my gosh, putting it in the context of something they care about And each one is different,
100%.
depending on the student, because some might
100%.
be interested in, I don't know, like zoos and fashion, and someone might be interested in sports. That's so cool.
100%. And this is really as a starting point for our customers so they can actually take these components and build something themselves.
I love it.
Because this is really where we also want to bring Copilot into the equation is like, hey, this is my curriculum. Can you do exactly the same, but now, for example, for the French Revolution, for my history class?
This is great because you're showing the art of the possible to educators on here's how you can use this as a thought partner to help you do your job better. And for learners, how do you be a personalized tutor? Doesn't give you the right answer, but it leads you there.
Correct.
Love that. That's very clever. I like that.
The second that I'm going to show is actually less about generative AI, but really in taking AI, and I'm not going to say try to fix a specific problem, but help in fixing the problem.
I love that. Yeah.
So a lot of students, when we think about our reading experience in the classroom, you're 20 to 30 students in a classroom, you have to read for 5 minutes. Often just the social pressure is enough to not being able to read like you actually can read.
Oh my gosh, let me talk about how much I hate this. Because I, as a dyslexic ADHD person, also spoke a second language. Reading in a classroom, especially out loud, is the worst thing that can ever happen to you as a young person. If you have any of these qualities, let's just put them as qualities, right? And I can't imagine even a teacher trying to make sure everyone is learning at the same speed, because how does a teacher make sure? Right? They can't just have the best readers read, because then everyone else is kind of zoned out. And they can't have the readers who are struggling read, because that is a humiliating exercise for everyone.
So just to give you a little bit more context, we actually did a project in Belgium, in Antwerp, where we have a lot of children where Dutch is not their first language. Right? And so what we've noticed is that their reading level was actually below the level that we expected it to be. And so we did a test, 4 weeks, 15 minutes a day, using this application. And what we've noticed, even after 4 weeks, that we saw an increase about half to a full reading level, that the students could then actually better read what was actually
just in a month.
Just 1 month.
In a month.
15 minutes a day.
Month. Wow.
And because they could do it on their own, which we're going to show in a bit, right? The teacher didn't have to sit with every individual student. They could actually see what is going on, how are they reading, which words do they have issues with, can I fine-tune the practice methodology even a little bit more, see the data, and then react to it and act on it. And that's really what we're trying to do here. This is the personal app. So this is something that everybody has access to. It's available on coach.microsoft.com.
Coach.microsoft.com. Go get it. This is amazing. I didn't know about this, by the way, until right now.
So you can just log in with your Entra ID account, your school account, or your professional account, or even your personal account. And this is pretty much what you're going to see. So the first cool thing is that you can create your own story. So I can now actually go in and say, I'm a fan of bears. So I'm going to take a bear. That bear is going to a stadium because I love football. And here's where you can actually choose your reading level. You see immediately what the text is going to be, right? I can then say, okay, that looks about what I want to read. Now what you see here is it's going to ask me if I'm ready to read out loud. Now, I'm not just ready yet. I want to read it by myself, just as a practice. And what you're going to see here is this is the immersive reader. So the immersive reader is an application that we have available, and you can actually tweak the experience based on, to quote you, your qualities.
That's right.
Right? So for example, if you want a different font, like Comic Sans, for example.
Which has been seen to help some dyslexic people, by the way. So when you see a sign in Comic Sans, it's not always just nonsense. Sometimes it's helpful.
See, I've learned something new. Even I was not aware of that. Let's say that blue is an easier color for you to read. Like for example, I don't do well with white colors. So I'm always going to use a different color. Let's say that you want to increase the spacing so it's more clear. And sometimes you even want to say, I want to focus on one line.
Oh, yes. Oh, I like this.
Right? So now it's very clear what we're trying to read. And once we move past it, it will actually follow you the way that you're reading. So that's really how you can actually control the experience. Once I'm ready to go, and of course, we're going to see that and of course, let's see if the demo gods are available to us. There we go.
Crossing fingers.
Yes.
Crossing fingers.
Bella the bear was excited for her schools and annual field trip to the stadium. As she boarded the bus with the rest of her class, just a few words, right? Now what we're going to see is that I get the results, I get my reading time. I know that I have 19 minutes to go for my next reward, and that could be a new character, that could be something completely different.
So you collect stuff from this.
Yes, but this is your environment, right? So this is completely on your device. You can see here which words I need to practice. Now what is really cool, I'm going to into this practice mode. So let's say imagined. I can now say, you know what? I don't really know how to read that word.
Right.
Split it up. Imagined.
Yep.
I can even, if there's a picture available, I can also have a picture, but I can also hear the word. So I can practice it.
Oh, I like
right?
that.
And then I can say it again, see if I'm getting close. And that way you can practice. And once you've done with your practice mode, you can actually go back and read it again. So you continuously improve the technical reading coach. Yes.
Yes.
And this is the same technology that we have in Teams for Education under Reading Progress.
Right.
And that's then something that the educator can use to actually distribute that.
And they can see the progress of their classroom over time.
Absolutely. And so what we've noticed is just a few minutes a day, one practice. The cool thing is that students love to create their own stories.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Right?
And it's new every time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we actually have a new functionality in here that is where they can then follow the different characters around. If you like this bear, okay, let's see what he does in the second chapter.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's all these different options, and we're using AI in many ways. One, of course, to generate the story. That's the generative AI part, but also to recognize the language, the pronunciation, and all the parts that are associated with that.
Which is like old school Azure computer.
Yes.
Not vision, but what is it? The speech
Speech
services.
recognition.
Yeah, the speech services. This is so cool. I love this. I like how I didn't know this existed until right now. But this is just a game changer to help people educate themselves at home and feel more confident when they're in the classroom. Plus it helps educators because a lot of like the air quotes homework actually now has a coach attached to it.
Correct.
So it's not like the students on their own, good luck.
Yeah. And really what we're doing as an education team is really twofold, right? One is, of course, building our own applications. The second part is taking all our commercial applications like Copilot with enterprise data protection now, and try to make it available in a safe and responsible way to all our students, whether they're in higher education, 18 plus, and we're trying very hard to make Copilot with enterprise data protection available under 18 as well. But the key thing with what we really want to emphasize is we want to do it correctly. We want to do it safe. We want to do it in a responsible way. And that's just very important when it comes to new technology as generative AI, where we just do that properly.
I love it. This is so cool. Jethro, thank you so much for coming here and sharing all this amazing new information. So what was the website again? Coach.microsoft.com. Go check it out. It's open source, which I didn't know. But it's something that anyone can use, especially those of you who might be dyslexic, might be ADHD, might be speaking another language, or might have a kid at home who is figuring out reading. And you know, we grossly overestimate literacy rates in the world, like we really do. And I think this is one of the most game-changing, interesting tools I've ever seen. But also those two agents for learners and teachers, that's cool. Like use these agents, also build your own agent to solve your own problems. One of the topics that comes up all the time are, what are some of the things that you actually can do with Microsoft Copilot to help you be more, I don't know, less stressed at work? I hate using the words more productive because, come on, how much more productive are we going to be? But one of the topics that always comes up is, hey, I took a holiday. It was summer, it was winter, it was Monday, who cares? I took a holiday. Coming back from holiday and catching up on everything I missed out on and what's top of mind is stressful. Then you think, I'm never taking a vacation again because catching up is such a pain in the neck. So we don't want you to have a case of the Sunday scaries or vacation scaries. So we've called our friend Love, hello, to share with us this really cool hack that he shared on LinkedIn. And I thought it was so interesting and so compelling how he's kind of hacked back to work. And we decided that we needed to share that with our audience today. Hey, Love, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, for sure. Nice to be here.
Of course. So tell us your story. You went on vacation, you came back, and you said, no, I'm not going to go through 8,000 emails and all the Teams messages and all the land. Tell us what you did.
Yeah, well, first, I mean, I went on vacation for about 5 weeks, which I know is unconventional.
Oh.
And so, yeah, I went to India, Dubai, and the UK just for, family stuff, traveling, etc. And I came back, and of course, that number at the top of your inbox that keeps on growing while you're away. I looked at it and I was like, why do this the old school way when, I have Copilot? And so this was one of the prompts that I utilized that worked pretty much like magic, that I've been on vacation for 5 weeks. Again, you can change it to be I was away for a long weekend, 4 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it may be, and would like to get updated on what I've missed. Summarize the things that, I've missed into 2 tables, important immediate action and not urgent, and then give me a table, as well as do not show me things that, are about updates or promotional emails, things like that you kind of want to avoid. And again, worked like magic.
Okay, what I like about this prompt is that you did all the things that we tell people to do with their prompt. First, you provided the context. I've been away for 5 weeks and would like to get an update on what I missed. Like context, I've been away for 5 weeks. Intention, I'd like to get an update on what I missed. Then is the action that you want the Copilot to do. Summarize the emails into something very specific, right? Like create a doc to do this, summarize things into that. Like do the action in this format. So you gave it very specific instructions. So it's got context, it's got desire, it's got the action you want it to take, and it's got the format you want to take it in. And then you put any caveats, like put it in the tone of this, or do not show me emails about promotional materials. I do not care. So I love that you followed the prompt guidelines that we tell everyone to do. And you, I bet, came up with something pretty good. What did you think of the results?
Very good. I absolutely loved it. Of course, I will say it didn't give me absolutely everything that I was looking for, but it gave me the things that are super high priority, right? Emails from managers, SOS from customers, or things like that, as well as the things that I didn't want to see, like the promotions, you're about to lose access to the SharePoint site. Did you want to renew access? All that stuff that, you can kind of get to later. It made sure to, adhere to the things. And again, this do not show me list is personal to me, but to anyone else, that could be many other things, right? So I absolutely loved it. And one of the things that I like about Copilot as well is that obviously you're seeing the prompt here, but in the response, you can hover on the attachment and you can say, tell me more or show me more. So I can kind of start prompting a little bit more and being like, okay, I want to see only things from a manager now, or only things from this customer. Was there an email thread about this topic, right? So now instead of, searching information and, using the search in Outlook, I can basically just start prompting away and asking some questions as if this was my personal assistant that was giving me all the responses pretty much quickly.
I love that. You actually did treat Copilot like a personal assistant, which is the point of the exercise. So you put this prompt into Outlook Copilot or into Microsoft Copilot?
This was in the graph-grounded chat, which is available in Teams, so the Copilot chat.
Oh, okay, the Copilot chat. Okay, so everyone, try this. Just try this, right? I've been gone all day at an all-day offsite. What are the emails that catch me up on immediate, not urgent? Just try it, because I tried it immediately. I had just come back from vacation, not 5 weeks, but 2. And I'm just looking at this inbox like, nope, because we're on AI tour. So the number of random follow-up threads and this and that, I think I had 10,000 emails about AI tour, no joke, because a lot of it's auto response and all of this stuff. And this really helped me to just say, here's a bunch of tour stuff, and then here's a bunch of things that are urgently, they're waiting for you to respond to, just based on, here I am on the to line alone, waiting for a response, right? So that's really cool. Okay, so you did this prompt, and then what?
And then it was on to another prompt. So I hit the new chat button or the new session, and I went into a second prompt, which looks something like this.
Okay.
So I've missed many meetings over the last 5 weeks, as again, you can imagine. So can you please create a table to summarize the meetings that have happened? If the meeting was recorded or transcribed, give me 2 to 4 bullets about, what the summary was. And if not, leave it as blank. So what this allowed me to do was, it not only see the ones that were recorded and transcribed, but also the ones that weren't. And so again, if there's some titles that really stood out to me, for example, internal update or sync or mandatory do join, something like that, then I can kind of visually see that. And again, follow up with the team member respectively in order to catch up on that as well.
I like this because you're taking something very unstructured like meetings and then putting them into something very tangible like a table, so you can see exactly the ones where, hey, cool, here's a recording. If there's not a recording, follow up on those first, right? See what happened with that meeting. But I love the idea of seeing all the meeting recordings in a table. I think that's genius, Because for me, it's digging around, looking at like the side and saying this meeting was recorded, was it? And seeing them before they get deleted, which is always a thing. But again, the way you did the context for this is great, which is I've missed many meetings. Can you do this action? And then here's the caveat, which is, you know, if this, then that, but also this over here. So I love how you're using exactly like, you know, basic software engineering structure, like while this is true, this is happening. And this is something that you can use, anyone can use for any sort of meeting catch up. Like it's just been a busy week with lots of meetings. Please catch me up on all the things that, you know, I need to review or where I have action items or whatever it is. So this is fantastic. I've never thought about putting meetings in a table. So this is great. Thank you.
It is actually a lot, very helpful. And especially like grouping tables, grouping meetings that are similar to it as well. Yeah. It changes your life.
That is interesting. So I'm going to try that because this was something I knew I learned from you from your LinkedIn post. All right. What else?
All right, and the last one, this one I want to say isn't vacation specific. It's actually something that I utilize on I call it my Friday prompt, and I pretty much shared it with all of my colleagues. And it basically says, leveraging my emails, chat messages, and files if needed. Give me a detailed miscommunications from the past week or from this current work week. One, I want to see the list of people who didn't get back to me and prioritize responding to them. And number two, people who did not get back to you and consider sending a follow-up email. So again, this is great for someone sent me an email, I may have missed it, I owe them a response. Or on the caveat side, I sent them an email, they didn't respond, it tells me, and it says, hey, this is how you prioritize it, right? So again, absolutely love this. You can even put in a third bullet, which I do, again, on a weekly basis because there's less emails then, which says, now give me a list prioritized how I get back to these people. Like, should I reach out to the person that didn't get back to me first or the person who I owe response to first, right? So again, you can make this prompt work very, very well, and I set this up as my Friday prompt.
I love that. This is great. What I like about this one is this is just straight up life stuff. Just straight up life stuff. Like, hey, we're going to forget to respond to people like me, and we're going to forget to follow up with people. But it's that per my last email meme, but in prompt form, which is hilarious. I love that. This is so cool. So one of the things that I find very interesting is that I think so many people overcomplicate what they want to use Copilot for. They were like, oh, I don't have some huge use case. But so much of it is just the things we do every week that are annoying to do, that are not really like our core job. It's part of the things we need to do our core job. But sending email is no one's actual job. They have a job. Sending email is the method to do it. Attending meetings is the method to do it. So I love that you are finding ways to automate these processes around your core job so you can make sure you didn't miss anything urgent from customers, your boss, your team, et cetera, et cetera. So you feel on top of things. You don't feel like completely out of control on Friday, and then that prevents, you know, Sunday scaries, burnout, et cetera, et cetera.
This was actually, full disclosure as well, this was actually a prompt that I developed when a customer was telling me about, like, we were just chit-chatting, and they're like, I have this laundry list of things that I have to do. I owe this person response. This person needs to get back to me. I have to follow up with them. So they called it a laundry list, right? Like you take care of it on the weekend type thing, and you're maybe not working, or like maybe Friday end of day. And so again, I think being around Copilot, having Copilot for the last year or so, I was like, no, there's got to be a better way to do this. Let's just try some prompts. And this one worked like magic. And again, it's my Friday prompt. Every single Friday at around 2 p.m. this runs, and it gives me the breakdown for the work week, so I can end off my week actually on Friday and not, have to spend a bit of time on the weekend just like, catching up and be like, oh, I remember this. Let me write it down for Monday or something like that.
And for us forgetful types, that's ideal if you can schedule it, right? Do you use the schedule prompt functionality?
I do.
Oh, that's very cool.
So I have a Monday, Wednesday, and a Friday prompt that run always. And then depending on the time of year, I have like a Thursday one based on like, what happened in the last 48 hours, or is there anything that's mandatory for me to complete by Friday for end of week, right? So I do utilize the schedule prompt a lot.
That is cool, love, because I just discovered how useful it was recently, because I do the same thing every Monday. I do the exact same thing, which is like, what meetings do I have on my calendar? What do I need to prep for, right? And that to me was the most stressful activity, just going through, because I get distracted. I'm like, oh, I need to prep for this. Then I'll start prepping. Then I'll forget to figure out what else I need to prep for.
Something else, yep.
That's exactly it. So it's very much personal assistant, Devil Wears Prada, here's your agenda for the week. And that's the prompt I started to schedule. And I thought, this is magical. We don't talk about this enough. But
do you schedule on a daily basis or weekly or monthly? How do you schedule it?
Weekly. So I just do the weekly Monday. But I love this idea of the weekly Friday, just the recap of the week. Because I use mine for planning, but I love the idea of catching all the things that are falling off the table, right? So I like this as a catch-all, as a kind of Friday catch-all. I'm stealing this prompt.
Go for it. I mean, I'll show you a version that is a bit longer. And again, the more you add to it, the better it is, right? For a manager, for example, this could be very simply be for each of my direct reports, because again, Copilot knows Active Directory. Tell me what's outstanding for each of my team members and if they need my help anywhere, right? Based off of emails, chat communication, even if you have one-on-one things that Copilot transcribe, it can give you that. So again, as a manager, when you think about, model coach care, you're making sure that you are on top of what they're asking you for.
I love this. This is great. So all three of these you did in BizChat, Teams, Graph Grounded Chat, whatever we call it nowadays. Amazing.
Pretty much,
I love that. Love it. Awesome. Well, Love, I have learned so much from you in this episode, and you are truly a Copilot power user because you're out there solving problems that none of us knew we had. We know it down, deep in our psyche, but it's not a problem that's so urgent that we're out there solving it. But you have created these beautiful prompts that clear up so much brain space so we can actually do our job better. So,
I'll be at it. I'll be at it always. I'll always be thinking of new prompts. So I'll definitely share them with you as they keep coming.
We would love that. Come back anytime. All right. So a big topic. I know I say that every time about everything, but these are all big topics. One of the areas that Copilot is really helpful is getting deep into an industry. And we know there's some industries, more traditional industries, that are absolutely ripe for transformation with the help of AI. Rather than me talking about it in a not very confident way, I've invited my friend Steve Knutson to join us and share with us some of the really interesting Copilot scenarios he's been seeing and doing in the legal industry. Hello, Steve. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Donna. Thanks very much for the invitation to speak today.
Of course. Tell us who you are, what you do.
I'm based in New Zealand, so I'm a company founder, and also I work primarily in the Microsoft 365 space, starting from the SharePoint side originally. And I have a team of people here that we do projects around intranets, document management, Copilot collaboration, sort of all of the collaboration stuff that sits above the infrastructure, I guess you might say.
I love that. So you've been in this space for a long time, like office stuff, collaboration, etc. And I've been seeing you do quite a bit with Copilot because, well, here's an opportunity, right, to use the magic of AI. What are some of the things that you've been seeing in the industry right now? What are some good scenarios, I would say, that are good in legal specifically, that are useful, right? What is AI useful for in legal, I think is what I'm trying to say in not very good words.
Yeah, so legal is kind of is quite interesting because it's really kind of a manual industry in a sense that a lot of collaboration happens, but it happens in a very traditional kind of way. And there's a number of things which happen, which are, I think, particularly where AI can help a lot. So the first one is general research, just being able to research a topic, because as a lawyer, especially if you're in a smaller firm, you're probably more generalist. So being able to do some basic research and discovery around a topic to get you started and sort of help answering questions is a very early starting place and easily achievable for everyone. Then there's also the more specific content requirements. So often in some legal processes, you'll collect a bundle of documents, and then you'll need to analyze that and come back to those questions. So usually that's done by an associate. So you'll have a partner or a solicitor in a firm working with associates who are getting asked questions to go away and do that research and bring it back. So it's all a very human process and quite labor intensive. Then there's also analysis of content. So looking at something and just looking for asking obvious questions, and I'll talk about that a bit later. But in particular, like if I'm reviewing a contract, for example, to make sure that the terms of that contract are satisfactory, or if there's something in there that we should be concerned about. Obviously, drafting documents, because law firms generate enormous amounts of content, of document content, but it's actually a collaborative process as well, and often backwards and forwards in a negotiation between multiple parties through that. And then law firms get lots of email. Like all of us in professional services, email overload is a challenge. And so being able to summarize content, catch up before you go and meet with a client about all of the things that are going on, those types of things are all areas that I think AI could really help in the legal profession.
So what I love about this is a lot of these are, yes, specific to legal, but many of them are specific to all of us. Because how many of us have had to go and analyze some content, right? It can be a 10-page white paper. It can be like this arsenal of PowerPoint presentations to make a new one or whatever it is. Some of these scenarios, they're just relevant for anyone who works in an office in general. So I love that you're drilling deep into legal, because we're going to be able to extrapolate so much learning from this and apply it to our job as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. This extends to anybody in professional services, or in fact, and beyond, right? One of my favourite times of the year is when Jeff Teeper's blogs come out about what's changed in Microsoft 365 after Ignite or the M365 Summit, and they're always very lengthy documents. So I like to summarise those and work out which ones I want to focus my time on. Sorry, Jeff.
I love it. I think that's great.
So, like, legal work in general is like it's as I was saying, very collaborative. It's often research driven. Lawyers are there to provide advocacy and advice to their clients, often on things which might be new to them. So they'll apply the legal constructs and practices to it, but there's still like a business specific thing. So maybe that might relate to that product. Interestingly, in patent law, for example, you might be asked to research and see whether the thing that you're going to do a patent application for has already been made. And so there's tools to do this, but AI can actually help accelerate that time. And also it requires specialist knowledge and experience. And one of the things which I've read recently around the impact of AI on law firms is that it's allowing a generalist lawyer to come back, somebody become more of a generalist lawyer again, whereas for a period of time we've become very specialised. That generalisation sort of slipped away, but that general practice is important, particularly in in-house teams. So those are things that are coming back in the legal space.
I think that's fascinating, where before we used to be generalist and we would go deep as needed per case, but then we just had so much work and so much expertise needed that we had to make so many specialists, very few generalists. And now that model, becoming a generalist and becoming a specialist as needed with the help of Copilot, because you still need to be a lawyer. It's not like I am going to go practice this, but you have to be able to know this is a good answer and this is a bad answer.
Yeah.
But you don't need to know all the nitty gritty of how to do every single last thing. That's interesting. I like that.
Yeah. And there's a bit of research around AI in general, which two pieces of research that I regularly cite these because I think they're both really quite interesting. One is a study that was done by MIT, where AI was used by researchers for document authoring, and they found two things. Firstly, that a 40% time saving, and secondly, the improvement in quality. And the Boston Consulting Group found did similar research across across consultants, and found that 40% boost also, which was fascinating, it was the same number, but was the mid-tier consultants that were really where this really impacted. They also found that 20% performed worse with AI, and that's because they potentially, I'm guessing, weren't didn't know how to use it properly, or were using the wrong tool in the wrong context. But the reason why this is important is because in law firms, you have this collaboration between a partner, a solicitor, and their team of people. And if the person at the top of the tree is spending more time reviewing and returning for rework, then that's just wasting time. If they get a better quality document in the first place, then we free their time up. And so I think that's like a really insightful thing around the impact of AI when it comes to writing content. And the big thing here is that's the average consultant that's lifting the most. So the average person has the biggest gain.
Yeah.
So firms aren't full of top performers. It's the average performer is the one we want to lift to get the best return on our investment in AI, and also improvement in productivity.
I love that. And just from bell curve laws, right? That's the majority of companies. is the average-ish performer, not like the super good performer, the person who's probably in the wrong job at all. It's the average person who's just trying to figure it out and do a good job, contribute to the business and go home as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that sort of talks to who should be in your pilot group when you're piloting Copilot as well. I think, you shouldn't be picking your rock stars.
No.
You should be picking the people who are in the middle.
That's right. That's such an insightful point. Okay. Louder for the people in the back. When you're choosing the Copilot pilot team, do not just choose high performers. Choose people who are kind of mostly in the middle, because they're going to have the most average sort of experience to bring to the table, rather than high performers are going to be high performing and you're going to think, oh, everyone in my company is going to adopt it and do stuff. Not really the case. Not really the case. Okay, cool. I like that.
And in the context of law firms, the common sort of tasks that firms do, a few here: drafting contracts, reviewing contracts, filing documents, legal research, compliance, due diligence, intellectual property protection, and so on. These are all things that AI can help with. So they're all things where you can use AI to save time or produce a better first version, better quality result. And in fact, in some cases, it's the ability to search across vast quantities of content. And when we talk about using perhaps a custom Copilot, that's a scenario where you could build something to actually connect to your firm's data and look across vast amounts of content for analysis and producing drafting documents, etc.
I love that. Yep.
Yeah, and like in a sort of an example, just taking that and putting it into a wee bit of an example. If you're preparing for some litigation, here's 5 things where AI could help straight away. So the first one is like finding and aggregating public information. So that's using Copilot to go out and look and say, are there similar, have there been similar cases before that are in the news, and give me some background knowledge on that, or they might be registered on a publicly available source. The second thing is you can use Copilot to analyze and compare similar cases. It can use it to help you develop a legal strategy. For how you might approach the litigation. Drafting all of your documents. So there's lots of material where drafting would be generated through a litigation process. And then finally, once you've actually done, analyze the outcome. Did we do this well? What can we learn from that? So take some of the things that we do in software all the time, do a retro, and learn to do better. So these are all things that you could do with Copilot. There's a really good resource on the adoption.microsoft.com website around specific sort of scenarios for these things as well, which are, if you're interested in reading more, adoption.microsoft.com is a great place to find it.
I love it.
And then I watched Kevin McDonald's talk that you did with Kevin, and it's which Copilot. So there's different Copilots for different things, and I actually did some little experiment with this. So some things actually Copilot in Edge does better than Copilot in Word, for example, if you're doing it like a patent analysis. But if you've got anything where there's like public content, going out to that public sites, web page summaries that use Copilot in Edge. If you're wanting to use the office productivity things, catching up on email, meeting recaps and so on, do that in the Office applications. And if you're wanting to connect to your document management system, so most legal firms will have documents that live out in a document management system connected to their practice management solution. Those documents are locked away, but they are accessible in some cases by building a custom Copilot. You can connect to different data sources and build a Copilot that can see the data it's in your practice management system. Of course, when you're doing that, there's the tools Copilot Studio, or if you need something more advanced, then you can do it with Azure AI as well.
I love that. I love that you've actually done this experiment and said, like, which of these are going to be better for which scenario, because it's easy to get confused and say, oh, Edge Copilot's good for all of these, but actually it's going to be much better for, or the internal one, right? The internal one is really good for internal things, not necessarily everything external research, etc. So I love this breakdown.
And then a really big question I get, this is always the number one question that comes up, is
ROI,
what's the impact of AI?
Business impact.
What's the impact on law firms? Right. So this usually comes from a place where law firms are worried about their business model, because they're time and material based for a large percentage of their work. They do they do value-based billing in some cases, but often it's time and material based. And if AI is going to save time, then it's kind of a double-edged sword for them in some senses. So they need to change their business model to be able to continue to build. But it goes a bit deeper than that, I think. A lot of the human tasks that are done by law firms are done by people who are, say, an associate or a recent graduate coming into a firm. A lot of those lower level tasks are achievable by AI. They could be done by AI. But we think we need to still be careful that we still create pathways for people coming into an industry, that we don't replace those roles completely. They've got to be people assisted in my view, because otherwise we simply shoot ourselves in the foot with not creating a pathway for a person to develop their career. But there's a few things that law firms also worry about. One is that they risk being seen more as a vendor. If I've got an AI-driven service where I'm providing legal advice through AI, then I become more of a vendor rather than a trusted advisor. So there's less interaction with people. There's a challenge with in-house teams becoming more efficient and outsourcing less stuff to external firms to do the work, and perhaps also that external work will become the hardest end of the scale rather than the stuff which is the bread and butter of a law firm's work. So these are all things that firms worry about happening over time, and so it's really important, I think, that law firms and the law industry in general sit down and work out, how they're going to tackle these challenges, but do it in a way that's going to continue to support people coming into careers, make sure that their clients get really good outcomes from the work done. And we all know that we've generated an AI-driven generated document at some stage. It's really important that we review before we send, because it doesn't have the ability to reason through a complex scenario. It's going to help you with the basics, but it's not going to let you reason through and generate the legal argument necessarily that you might need.
And again, Copilot, not autopilot. The expert is the expert. This is there to be an assistant, not to replace, which is great. Yeah, that is very true. 100% on that. It's very important to remember that. Don't send it without reviewing it first. Absolutely not.
But there's one of the interesting things that's happened with law firms too, and I've noticed this with some of the firms that I work with, is that before the pandemic, we were very much an office-based, very old culture of how they worked. And the pandemic's led to working from home. People have been able to, they've changed. Firms have become comfortable with working remotely. The expectation of people coming into the industry has also changed. And so the workplace is changing, and the adoption of digital collaboration has risen significantly, whereas previously, it was I'm going to get someone to type this. We're then going to photocopy it and send, and then email the scanned PDF of that document to another firm so they can't edit it. Now that's gone. Now we're digitally signing. We're doing all of these digital processes, and AI is the logical thing to sit on top of that.
I love that. That is very, very cool.
Yeah, and I found this comment when I was reading the Microsoft Workplace Trends Index, and it sort of resonated with me. So it's fascinating that people are more excited about AI rescuing them from burnout than they're worried about it eliminating their jobs. And I think that speaks to people can come home and spend time with their families rather than working late into the night on things. Right. And that's really the thing that for me personally has been a success when using AI. I think that many others will have that same measure for themselves as well.
I feel that too. I'm writing a document, a white paper, on just all kinds of angles of AI, and responsible AI is a big topic. And I'm like, I have so much content on responsible AI. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to reason over this and write the draft, right? Consolidate it down to 2 pages with everything I know about responsible AI in the world, which is probably 50,000 pages. And just the thought of consolidating was terrible. So I said, why am I doing this? So I just threw my documents in a share and had Copilot write me a 2-page document with the most important, impactful points to someone who's new to responsible AI.
Yeah.
And it was pretty good. It was pretty good.
That's fantastic.
I swapped out some of the examples with newer examples, but that was about it. And I said, this feels like cheating, but it is not. Right.
That's working smarter.
Exactly, working smarter. I love that.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Today I'm going to demonstrate a couple of things. The first thing I thought I'd show is how to analyze a document just using Edge to do this. So what I've got on my screen here is a master services agreement. These can be lengthy documents. Often they'll have important dates and terms and conditions. There'll be things around insurance, for example, perhaps intellectual property that you might need to review before they're signed. And so just to do a quick review of this document, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste in from my OneNote a prompt that I've created here to summarize the document and outline the key dates related to this document. So if I just hit go on that one, it's going to look at the agreement here, and it's going to read through this one here, and you'll see it's found my document, which is an agreement here. It's found the parties, and it's given me a bit of a summary of the document with key dates in here. So now what I might want to do is ask it a question about whether there's anything we could do to improve the protection of intellectual property inside this in this contract. So what I'm doing now is following on with the second prompt. So these prompts are building on the previous one. So what improvements could be made to this document to ensure the intellectual property and ownership for any work done is clearly understood? So I'll ask it this question, and it's going to generate for me some suggestions. So you'll see in here, it's one of the things it's doing is it's come through here and it's saying define the, sorry, scrolling down a wee bit. It's got a whole lot of things in here that are suggestions around how we can improve this document. So defining the ownership, including a detailed definition, specific usage rights, addressing anything related to third-party intellectual property. So maybe your product is made up of something which includes things you've components from somewhere else. It's really common in software, but we know it's also common in other industries as well, and including confidentiality. So straight away, it's looked at this contract and it's said these things are things that you could add to improve it. What I realized I didn't do in that previous demo, in the very first prompt, was I asked around dates and insurance, and you'll see it's given me a little summary up here of the key dates, the duration, the notice period, insurance liability requirements, and it said that there's a little bit about intellectual property, but not a lot. So really quick and easy way to analyze what can be quite a lengthy document, and doing it straight in your browser. Now you can also do this, you can also, you'll see it's given some additional prompts in here that we can use, and so maybe I want to just get a bit more information about some of the common pitfalls to avoid in an IP agreement. Copilot's figured out that this might be a good prompt for another question you might have, and so this is going to give us some further information here to help guide through that process. So think about this as a way of like reviewing a document before you could perhaps go back to your legal team with questions and say, how do I do this? Here's some things that I'd like to discuss with you. So maybe it's going to help you as a person that's working on the agreement to actually ask the legal team for the right sorts of advice. So as I mentioned before, I'm storing my prompts in Copilot because this is in OneNote, because this is something I might want to do multiple times. So I can do this with different documents and go back and ask the questions. You can also use Copilot in Edge to work with public documents. So I'm a fun fact. Sorry, click the wrong button here. I am a shareholder in a chocolate factory. It's something that I did a long time ago with when an opportunity came up, and I talked to my girls and said, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we owned a chocolate factory?" And so we bought shares in one. And so I've got a keen interest in heat-resistant chocolate because we know it melts and gets sticky everywhere. So there's a patent. So on Google Patents, which is a public website, you can go and you can look up patent information, and you can get all of the details of a patent on there, and you can download it and do different things in here. But you can also, because it's just a public website, you can also use Copilot with this content. So as an example, you might want to ask it a question around summarize. If I might just go into here, start a new chat, go summarize this web page with details of the patent for chocolate and what makes it unique.
I love this. This is a chocolate factory demo. This just makes me so happy right now. Yeah.
Okay, it's going to do the same thing it did before. It's going to tell me it can't find anything specific about this page. So let me just try one more thing. I'm just going to flip back over to web view.
Flip to web.
Because this is a public page on the internet. So so when you're using public pages, the web view is going to help us here. So and actually what I'm going to do, rather than retype my prompt, I'm just going to go and grab my that I made earlier, and I'm just going to ask it to review this patent. And so I'm going to say review the patent and draft a novelty analysis, including citations. So this is something that you might do when you are looking to find out what's unique about a patent. And when I look at this analysis that it's given me back here, so it's a summarized view of this quite lengthy page. In here, it's talking about a whole lot of kind of technical things. Now, I might not be a technical, as a lawyer, I'm not a chemist, right? So I don't know necessarily what the benefits of what things are. So perhaps I want to find out what monosaccharides are. So, so why are monosaccharides important in chocolate manufacturing?
This is just a learning experience all up. Right.
So often as a lawyer, often you are learning, right? You're learning about what it is that I'm about that topic because perhaps you haven't worked with a chocolate company before and you need to find some. So, and one of the cool things about Copilot is it gives you all the references down here of where it gets the information from. And so we can see that it's important for things like sweetness, texture, fermentation, preservation, etc., with references to it, so I can help with that. So it's quite good for like basic research. There are other tools that you can get out there for it, but sometimes they're paid tools, right? You need to go and pay for access to like a patent review system. When maybe I'm just doing a basic review before we decide whether we're even going to bother. Patent applications are expensive, of course. So that's kind of the first demo. So content summarization inside Edge.
I love that.
What I was going to do was switch over and try something else. And this time I thought I might just do it in Teams actually rather than Word. Actually, no, we'll do Word. Most law firms, our lawyers will spend a lot of time in Microsoft Word. So a few things that are quite useful just to sort of get you started. The first one is actually the blank screen problem. So when you're looking at a white piece of paper and going, where do I even start? So a few things that you can do. The first one is if you wanted to just create a prompt to ask a basic question around generating an outline document, then you can do it here. You could also attach a document as a reference. So in this case, what I'm going to do is attach a reference document. So I'm going to attach my master services agreement that we saw in the Edge demo, and then I'm going to ask it to generate a new document based on this template, on this template. And include a pricing schedule for the Australian market. We're a New Zealand company, and also include a section on intellectual property ownership rights. So I'm going to generate this. And you'll remember in that previous one demo, there was no intellectual property rights information in there. So now we're generating a new document. And you'll see at the start, it started off by including the name of the service provider, but it hasn't included the client name because I haven't mentioned that in there. And you'll see down here, it's also included a pricing schedule. And it's also, hopefully, if we scroll back up the document here, included some intellectual property rights ownership in here. So I'm just going to say keep this. So this is a good starting point. Now what I might want to do is as a lawyer is not send this document to someone straight away, because obviously this section here that I've got around intellectual property rights is generic, and it might not be what I want to do. So this is where the Copilot part of Copilot comes in. You should be working with Copilot to draft the document, but then come back through and review the detail on here. You can rewrite this, of course, so you can go into here and either click onto the little Copilot icon and rewrite this prompt.
I like that. You can rewrite just one segment with a prompt.
Yeah, rewrite one segment. Or the other thing you can do is we can click underneath it and add a new paragraph in here, some additional details. So include details on New Zealand IP law in here, and so it's going to then go away and find, you'll see that the governing law underneath is New Zealand, and so you'll see now it's kind of here included a bit of information here about our acts. So that information it's gone and got from the internet, right? So it's gone and researched to see what are the acts that apply to this, and it's added it into here, into the document.
I love it.
So it's helping me build out this document really quickly, and at least get to a draft state, because often actually the very first thing that we're trying to do when we're creating a contract is just get down the core things that we want to talk about so that we can then go and discuss with a client or and negotiate what these things should be. So we're at the very early drafting stage.
I love it.
Now, another thing you can do with Copilot, and another thing we can do with Copilot is, like, once we've created a document, we might have to email this to someone. So obviously I've got a wee bit of work to do on here, but if I use Copilot up here, I might want to send this to someone. So if I do that, there we go. I can ask, I want to send a short summary. So perhaps I've produced a really lengthy document. So create a short summary to email to send with this document. And you can include something like the email will be sent to Jane. So we'll do this, and it will generate for us a little summary of the document with the key points. Yeah, so now I've got this short little email here to go with this document to send to her. You can ask it to include some details. Perhaps it's the pricing that's important, or you want them to review the insurance section, those sorts of things. So you can just send that off. You can send that off, of course, obviously as a sharing link or with an email attachment if it's going to someone where you want to send an attachment. And it all works with sensitivity labels and so on as well. So if this document contains source information from a sensitive source, it will apply the same sensitivity label to it in that process. So it's like a simple thing you can do with Word that I quite like. Another thing that you can do with Word also is you can, let's just go grab a paragraph here. When I click onto here and I go auto rewrite on this paragraph, it's going to give me an auto rewritten option. I can click into here and change the tone. So maybe I want to make this more concise. Probably not imaginative if I'm a lawyer, but maybe let's go with concise. So I'm going to regenerate this, and it's going to generate a shortened version of that here. So now I can go replace, and it's going to replace that section with the more concise version of the text. So you can change tone. It can help you with with writing styles. And one thing, I'm a terrible, I struggled through writing at school and through in English. And one thing that I like in Word is this editor feature. And what I notice is that if I use Copilot to write a document, I get a really high score, whereas if I write it myself, it's a really low score. So thinking back to my previous talk about the quality of the writing that you're giving to someone, it's going to get the grammar and stuff right, which is also really important. I
like what you said right here. Let's not skip over this. This is a really important point, right? Because business leaders are always saying, how do we measure ROI? Here's a very quantitative way to measure ROI, because there's qualitative, like, yeah, I did my work faster, I felt better about it, I was more chill at work, great. But here's a real one where my editor score of this thing I had to write from scratch about a topic I'm not an expert in was really high from the beginning versus having to going through 5 iterations with people and getting review, comment, et cetera, et cetera. So that to me is just like a very clear ROI, even for people who are non-believers.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things that you can do with where Copilot's really good. I won't show it today, but in Outlook, when you're emailing, if you're a person that writes really, I'm going to say, short and sharp emails, and you want to soften that a wee bit, you can use Outlook, and it's got features in there that'll help you like soften the writing. So those are things I quite like as well, as well as the automatic reply. That's actually cool.
Yeah. I love that.
So,
that is awesome.
Yeah. And then one of the last things that you can do with this is once you've created a document, you can use PowerPoint. To convert this document into a slide deck and create a summarized slide deck for presenting as well. That's another cool feature of Microsoft 365 Copilot that I really like as well. And at the moment, one thing I did discover with that is that the image content's really US-centric. So as a New Zealand company, we have to go back and do things like swap images out. Hopefully that will improve, but in general, it's much faster than I'm going to be at creating a slide deck at the very beginning and get me going.
That's true. A lot of people have said that the best way to use PowerPoint Copilot is to upload a Word document, because then you're going to get a really good PowerPoint coming from like a detailed talk track compared to something that you type in a little box. So that's great. I love that.
And then also the last thing in the Office Copilot, Word Copilot that I quite like is in here you can, obviously if I've got maybe I've got a bit of a brain freeze on what it is I want to write, and I wanted to sort of do a bit of brainstorming. So I can just say, give me let's be specific. Let's be 5 ideas on I'm going to go back to contract terms that should be in standard agreement, and it'll just help me with going through and checking and saying what are my blind spots. So what are the things that I have forgotten to include in here? I spoke to a manager recently who said I use Copilot primarily when somebody asks me a question so that I've got a rounded answer or covering off all the key points around it. And so in here, it's just given me back 5 things that should be in a standard contract, so I can go and check myself. So have I got all the things that I need to have in here? So that's another little thing that I think people will find very helpful.
This is cool. You made yourself a nifty little checklist. What are 5 things I should have in a contract for those of us who may not be making contracts every day? That's very, very interesting. I like that. That's cool. Make yourself a nifty little checklist. I like it, Steve.
So it's a super easy thing to do. You've just got to remember to do it. That's all.
Right. You have to remember to do it. Steve, I've learned so much from you during this time that we've spent together. Thank you so much for first teaching me a lot about the legal industry as a whole, but also showing me specifically how you have been using Copilot with your clients and customers to not just educate them on how to use Copilot, but how you're learning along the way alongside with them. This has been really, really amazing.
Thank you, Donna. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to show off some of the tricks that I've learned over the last little while. Thank you.
Please come back and show us all of the new things that you learn over the course of the next few months. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time on Copilot Learning Hub.